Okay, one more time. Okay, tonight Zera Shimshon Shiur is sponsored, first of all, anonymously, Hagefen, Hatzlocha, Gezint, Parnusa, Nachas, for Klal Yisrael, Lila Nishmas, Matasyo ben Moshe Alav Shalom, great-grandfather of Rabbi Vayeishev Ketei, and great-great-grandfather of Yechiel Ketei. He was born in Przemysl, Poland, and settled in USA after World War I. And for Chaim Weitzner, who's here, Baruch Hashem, and takes care of us and puts us on Torah anytime. Lila Nishmas, his mother, the 10th Yartzeit Karen Tzivya Bas Asher Lev Halevi, and in honor of the Maggid Shiur. Tonight, Zera Shimshon is Parshas Vayeishev, letter Tes Zayin. It's page Shin Pei Daled, Rabbi Say. It's actually the last piece in this parsha. Shin Pei Daled. I also want to remind everyone before we even start that Be'ez Hashem next week is our annual Zera Shimshon Shiur Siyum Seuda, which we host in our house, 55 Mariner Way. Start time is a little bit earlier than now. Start time, Be'ez Hashem, will be next week at 7:30, just in time for dinner, for Seuda. And it's being sponsored by KC Grill, and we're making a siyum, Be'ez Hashem, on one of the Mesechtes in Yerushalmi. It's either Makkos or Avodah Zarah. I'm not sure which siyum we're going to be making. We'll see if if we finish Makkos, Be'ez Hashem, by Thursday. But I'm inviting the Gaon Olam, come hungry. And we'll have the Zera Shimshon / Maral Shiur in the house with some music and some Divrei Torah and a siyum and get the Zachen. L'kovet Chanukah. Okay. Shin Pei Daled, letter Tes Zayin, the Schus of Shimshon Chaim v'Menachem Achol, Schus of Yugen Aleini. Garsina Perik Yud Aleph the Sanhedrin. Amar Rav Yehuda, Amar Rav. La'olam al yavai adam atzmai lidei nisayin. A person shouldn't bring himself to a nisayin. Probably one of the reasons the Zera Shimshon discusses this is because Yosef HaTzadik in this week's parsha was brutally tested, day in and day out, by Eshes Paitifar, Nebuch, a 17-year-old boy, and mit dem Meshiggemach. And Baruch Hashem, he was Oymid bin Nisayin, but then he got thrown into jail. And then he had that Nisayin, etc. Al Kopanim, you certainly shouldn't ask for it. How do I know that? La'olam al yavi adam atzmai l'dei Nisayin, Shari David Melech Yisrael. Hevi atzmai l'dei Nisayin v'nichshal. He asked for a Nisayin, and it didn't work out well. He was nichshal. The story goes, says the Gemara, as follows: Amar lefan of Rabbi Nisham b'pnei ma oimrim elekei Avram, elekei Yitzchak, ve'elekei Yaakov, ve'ein oimrim elekei David. Imagine, David HaMelech had gewollt that they should say elekei David. Let's not think for a minute that David HaMelech wanted stam recognition. It wasn't a pursuit of gaiva chas v'sholem. David HaMelech, right, who was, as we'll soon see, ki chosid oni, David HaMelech wanted to be misakein, as Chazal say, wanted to be misakein, the merkava of the gimel avos plus him. The Eibishter, the merkava of this world, the Roichev, the Eibishter who was, in Yiddish you say, sometimes it only works in Yiddish, vierzach. How do you say that in English? I don't know. What?
Behaves.
No.
No?
He runs the show. Leads. Okay. Ooh,
He doesn't know which daf is.
Volume 3. Shekoyach. Wow. David, everything you do, David, you do me'achuz. There's nothing you don't do me'achuz. So, the Gemara says that David HaMelech understood that he could be Mesaken Regel Revi in the Merkava. Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov had done 3, and David HaMelech's job and opportunity was due number 4. And when Klal Yisrael would refer to the Eibishter as Lekei Avram, Lekei Yitzchak, Lekei Yaakov, Lekei David, there would be a tikkun in the Welt that thanks to the Avos plus David, the Eibishter would have a kviyistik mokaim hashra shechina in this world. Let's not forget, and we're soon going to see that, maybe in this Shiur and also in the Maral Shiur, that David Mashiach is known as Mashiach ben David. He wasn't David HaMelech's son. He wouldn't be, unless he lived forever. He wouldn't be around now, right? So it must be when the Mashiach will come, it'll be directly connected to David HaMelech. Means it's going to be the koiches, the influence, and it's going to be ben David. So, and Mashiach, whose job is to be Melech HaMashiach and be Mamlech, the Eibishter in the world, will fix the world up in a way that it's supposed to be. Oz Egmar B'Shir Mizmar, as we say, Chanukah Zamizbeach. From this Yom Tiv, Daf Kumen Agresre Yom Tiv, has to be that what was started in Chanukah gets finished off. Oz Egmar. And that has to happen through Mashiach. And David HaMelech is the one who his koyach brings that. And David HaMelech felt that if he could be Mesaken, what he has to be Mesaken, then we could say Lekei Avram, Lekei Yitzchak, Lekei Yaakov, and we could say Lekei David as well, and Als wird sein Mesuken. So they gebeten, Eibishter, why don't they say it? Says the Gemara, the Rabbi Chaim told them, Amalafan Rabbi Chaim, Amalafanav, Inhu Minsuli, they were tested by me. You, however, you have not been tested by me. At loy minisli, you haven't been tested. So David HaMelech said, okay, Amalafan Rabbeinu Shalom Nisani, so test me. Shanam, like it says, Bechanoni Hashem, V'nisani, as it says in Tehillim, be boichen me, give me bechina, give me a test. What's bad idea? That's what the Gemara says. That's what Yudam Rav says. Al Yovei Adam Lavnei Nisoyin. You know the story. I'll tell you what I'll do, says the Eibishter. Minisina loch v'avidna milsa de bahadoch didhu lo yadinu. I will test you and I'll do you a teva. I'll do something for you which I didn't do for them. I didn't let them know beforehand they were getting tested. I didn't give them a heads up. You should know you're being tested. I didn't tell that to them. I'm going to let you know you're going to be tested, and I'll even tell you which sug you're going to be tested in. You're going to be tested in a dvar erva. Do you know who that was? Batsheva, exactly. Batsheva. And unfortunately, right? The Gemara says, "Kol mishamar David chayte eina elatah." But for David HaMelech, for his madrega, he's held accountable. And because of that, he had much more tsaros. Zuk de heilige Zera Shimshon, as he always does, he asks the clearest and most basic, simple kashas. The kashas that maybe we should also ask. Efrek poshet the kashas, which we always say, he didn't get a patch for asking the question. Didn't get a patch. You're allowed to ask a kasha. Sinishkem problem. You're allowed to. Look what he asked. First of all, Mak Beida Zoyshamim Lekei David. What is this kpeid of Eich Tova Mashaloi Tova Moshe? Moshe didn't ask us. So we already answered this a little bit. We said because David HaMelech wanted the tikkun. But that's one question. Yes. V'oid. Ho yulu ba'oidoi b'chayim. David HaMelech was still alive. David. Why? Shari ein HaKadosh Baruch Hu miyachet shmoy tzadikim b'chayayim. The Rebbeinu Shalom doesn't say Elokei of anyone until after the Ptira. Because of Rashi wrote by me he could look right me he could look. That's like it says over there. that what it says pachad, not Elekei. Exactly, that's the note. It says pachad, it doesn't say Elekei Yitzchak. And in one place it does say Anoichi Elekei Avram Elekei Yitzchak. But Yitzchak was already blind and he was stuck to his house, and Sumas Chashav Kemes. Therefore, he was considered, you could say Elekei, Aber Minastam Lo. And therefore, says the Zera Shimshon, maybe they will. That they won't. How do you know? Maybe they will. After you die, they'll say Lekei David too. Now you want they should say Lekei David when you're alive? That's unreasonable. Nobody gata that. You're still alive. Atabe Emtza. Chazal say one of the reasons is because you never know what's going to happen until the end. The Eibusher can only put his name on a person after his job is done. Till then, Mevaisachnish. Remember I told you a few weeks ago, Rev Banoi, the Gemara in Baba Basra, when it says that he went to measure the people, right? So we said that Maral explains one of the things he did was not just to measure where they were for Tumah, also to measure to see their accomplishments in life, what they farmukt, what they were able to get to in their life. It's only after a person passes away. While he's still alive, is noch be'emtza, he's still in the middle. So what's going on, Frank the Zera Shimshon? Eisen Akashas, strong questions. V'yesh loymar, says the Zera Shimshon. He's going to shtel, he's going to put a few different yisoides down to answer this question. What did David HaMelech want? Why was it Dafka David HaMelech and not others? Why did he want it? That seems to be Dafka Mechayim. How did he know that if it wouldn't be Mechayim, it's not going to be Lachar Misa? What's going on? Zok the Zera Shimshon v'yesh loymer de Isa b'Medrash. Ala pasuk v'yomer Yaakov Elekei avi Avram Elekei avi Yitzchak. This is back when he was fearful of Esav. Asks the Medrash, you're invoking the help of Avram and Yitzchak. You know, you also have a brother Esav. He also has a tata named Yitzchak. He also has a Zeda Avram. How could you ask for the help of Elekei Avram and Elekei Yitzchak if at the end of the day, Esav has the same lineage? The Zel B'Svara, Esav could do the same thing. Let's take a look at the Lashon over here. Vayomer, Hola Esav Loi. The Zera Shimshon quotes the Lashon of the Zohar. Ella explains the Zera Shimshon, says the Medrash. Haboicher bedarcheihem v'ha'oise kemaaseihem ani miskayim olav. You want the schus of Avraham and Yitzchak? Boicher b'maaseihem, hoilech bedarcheihem. Go in their path. Do like they do. Show that you are a child of Avram and Yitzchak. Show that you are, and you get what they got, and you get the good. Mi she'eina Berger b'darcheim ve'eina oisa k'maaseihem eini miskayim olav. But ve'eina is nish Berger. Says the Medrash. What's the Meira? What are you scared? That Esav also has a, excuse me, Esav doesn't look like Yitzchak. Esav's not acting like Avram. Esav doesn't get that schus. Continues, upirish ba'matnas kuhuna. Which schus are we referring to? Miskayim olav means to say lahatzlichoy b'chol derochav. He gets hatzlach with all that he does. V'lahoishiyoi mikol tzoroisav, and he gets help from all of his tzaros. This is where the Zera Shimshon ends in his quote of the Medrash, but the Medrash continues, and it's important that we see all of it. Says the Medrash, Rav Huna b'shem Rav Ach Omar. I want to ask you a question, says Rav Huna. Mi hayakarav leDavid? Between Achaz and Chizkiyahu, who was closer to David? Do you know who Achaz was? Chizkiyahu's father. He was not a good person. Mi hayakarav leDavid. Loi Achaz, he was one generation closer. And still, meiniach leAchaz, ve'amar leChizkiyahu kai amar lekei David avicha. Your father, Chizkiyahu, is not Achaz. Your father is David HaMelech. Why? Ela haboiche bedarkeim v'oisem kemaseim ani miskayim olav. If you follow the Avos HaKadoshim, and you can be identified like the Avos HaKadoshim, look, there's a kid of Avram. There's a kid of Yitzchak. There's a kid of Yaakov. Ezeitos v'datata. He looks like the Zay. He looks like the father. So you get the kov. You get the reward. She'eina Berger b'darchem eina oisik ha'masem eina miskaymav. It could be a father and a son. It could be a father and a son. But the father, I'm sorry, like Ochaz, like you said, Meir, he has no shaykhs. He's a Melech Yisrael. He comes from David HaMelech, but he doesn't get the schus of David HaMelech. As I state in the Medrash, says the Zera Shimshon, let's continue. V'im kain, David HaMelech, who in his life, Olav HaShalom, shahoya like kama tzoros, he was going through tzoros, his shver. You know who his shver was? Who was David HaMelech shver? No, we don't learn Navi. How should you know? Nebuch, right? Who was his shver? Shaul. And what did he want to do to him? Kill him. Shver, yeah, that's maybe where the name shver came from, Mendel. He was the shver of all shvers. That's right. Edem Gewalt Hargenen. He wanted to kill him. His own children wanted to kill him. David HaMelech had sudas from all ala Zaiten. Listen, I don't know if the Olam had a chance. You'd say I owe you a book. I don't know if the Olam had a chance, but in the Hakdama to Hallel, in the sefer that we put out, over there, the Maral on Sukkot and Hallel, over there we're zeicha to be mechadesh. As I state Lamaisa, as I state in Svarim, the Zera Shimshon writes it somewhere. I heard from my Rebbe that David HaMelech is unique more than any other person on this planet. How did David HaMelech get his 70 years? From Adam. We talked about it, right? How so? Adam Arish, the Gemara says, he asked the Eibishter, Yesh matana b'shamayim, can I give a present? He said, yeah. He saw this neshamala that was only supposed to live 3 hours. We said a cheshbon, why 3 hours in a minute? It's only supposed to live for 3 hours. And he said, but can I give him 70 years? The Eibishter said, yes. So he gave him shivim shana.
Why 70?
Why? Yemei saying bem shivim shana. Keneged the shivim different malachim around the kisei. Keneged the shivim umais. All the different suras ha'adams. We'll talk about it in Maral Bezus Hashem Abisala. We're going to touch upon that. So there's 70. Every person in the world comes from Adam HaRishon and doesn't subtract years from Adam HaRishon. Their lives, Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov, everybody, Moshe, they all come from one Adam, correct? Does Adam lose any years by the fact that they're born? Of course not. That means that they're Yotzei Chalotzov. David HaMelech's years come by subtracting 70 years from Adam HaRishon. Do you know what that means to say? That Adam's 1,000 years is lived through Adam and David. That puts him in a position of a shutif with Adam HaRishon. He's a shutif because together we live 1,000 years. That allows him to have a status of being influential in the world, to be as influential as Adam HaRishon. Adam HaRishon started us off, and the koyach of David HaMelech will bring us all back together. That's the koyach of Mashiach ben David, who has the koyach to be mi'ached. Favos val zayne chiyus is a chiyus direct from Adam HaRishon. This is Adam HaRishon dike chiyus. Everybody has Adam HaRishon dike chiyus, but it's shutfis with Adam HaRishon. This is miyuchad. This is special. That's his shutfis, and David HaMelech had that opportunity. So if David HaMelech is going to say Elekei, if we're going to say Elekei David, that the Eibishter is identified to us as Elekei David, that's a tikkun in an Adam HaRishon, which is above and beyond, in a certain sense, what the Avos HaKadoshim Gitan. The Avos Avadu were Mesakin. Right? The Yaakov Avinu was a chelek of the Adam HaRishon's lived years. Why was it 3 hours? Because if Adam wouldn't have lived, if Adam wouldn't have sinned, he was, as the Gemara in Sanhedrin says, in one of the 3 Sanhedrins, David, that you brought me, I think it's Lamed Ches, in one of the volumes, it says there that he was created, and I think it was the 7th or the 8th hour on Yom Shishi, and 3 hours later he sinned. So had he not sinned, David HaMelech's neshama could have come down for 3 hours. I don't need any more than that. Those would be the 3 hours of David HaMelech. But because he was chayte, Adam HaRishon realized he saw this neshama could help and fix up what needed to be fixed up through his avodah, through David HaMelech. So therefore he said, can I give him my life? So he should be able to have years, but as such, then he was already Adam Nochen Chet. This is Adam of who's got to do tshuva. And that's why David HaMelech is so responsible. When we talk to the Eibishter, Ubeshirei David Avdecha Na'alelcha Unshapechacha, we go ahead and we praise the Eibishter with David HaMelech. Mezen Ale mini David HaMelechs. We're all saying his words, okay? We're saying his words, his shiras, his shvachas, and Anshek Nesek Gdoilo, who taught us tefillah, went into Tehillim and saw that as a prototype of how they're supposed to daven to the Eibishter. Al Koponim, so what did he want? Yitzi, give me a few minutes. David. So David HaMelech wanted to fix up while he was still alive. He wanted that his lifetime already should be connected to that, like the Avos HaKadoshim. He wanted to have that tikkun. That what did the Avos HaKadoshim tikkun? What did they accomplish? We say it so many times. We go through this Yesod again and again. Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, the three of them were misaking those midos that Adam was mekalkal, whether it was chesed, whether it was gevura, whether it was tiferes. Together, the three of them fixed up ad kedei kach, like the Riyah Kodesh writes that the mustiyuknoi shel Yaakov looks like Adam HaRishon, koidem achet. So they're one aspect of tikkun. That's one aspect of tikkun of the Avos HaKadoshim. And it needed to be finished off through David HaMelech to bring, they brought the Tzuras HaAdam, and David HaMelech had to bring the Malchus to the world, to unite the world with the Koyach HaMalchus. That's what David HaMelech had to do. They had to create the people. From them came a nation. Ein melech beloy So first you needed an and once you had an now we can have a melech. Their job was to create the basis. The basis, Zozain, Yidden. There should be people that have a Tselem Elikim, a Tzuras HaAdam. It shouldn't be that everybody's thinking, V'chol machshavas libay rak kol hayoim, which is what happened to humanity after Adam HaRishon. That's what happened to people, only bad. Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov, like the Gemara says in Baba Basu Yud Zayin, fixed their Yetzer Hara. They conquered their Yetzer Hara. They were able to have the essence of good, and that's what they gave us. Rachmanim, Baishanim, Goim Lechasodim. Those are all the good midas a person has. So now we have a folk. Now we have a nation. So we need a king. Avad, you have a king. David HaMelech will be misaken that chelik to lead and be gathered together, these people. If he won't be matzliach while he's alive, he won't be able, if we don't say the Zera Shimshon's Mechadish, that for David HaMelech, he had to have the Lekei David done while he was still alive. He had to bring this tikkun to the world different than everyone else. It wouldn't be in the sky afterwards. When he saw him being run after, when he was being pursued by his enemies. So he saw, how am I ever going to be a Lekei David? My shver wants to kill me. This one wants to kill me. Everybody's out to get me. When am I ever going to have that shalva? When I need the help? I need also to be able to be associated with those others. So Bikesh MaKadosh Baruch Hu. At der Vayeishev gesagt, fine, but you need to be tested. Why? That's the next piece. What does he have to have an asayin? If he's a tzaddik and he's a chassid and he's a baal masam toivim, sagi, why is that not good enough? If David HaMelech is so righteous, Zok de Zera Shimshon, the teretz is, the Isa ben Medrash, v'lekim nisas Avram. Says the Medrash, Nosati liyiraecha, nes lihisnoises mepnei kshoit sela. I've given to to those who fear you, nes. Nes means a mast, like on a ship. Nisoyin acha nisoyin, gedulin acha gedulin. Rising you up. Bishvil nasoyson ba'olam, bishvil gadlim ba'olam. The nisyonis bring them up and exalt them. Kenes hazeh shel svina. Like a nes, what? A sail. A sail that you rise up on them, right? That rises up. The kol kach lo mepnei kshoit selo shetiskashit midas adin ba'olam. If a person says, it's not fair, the Eibishter plays favorites. The Eibishter plays favorites. How? Lemisha writes a ma'asher, Lemisha writes a ma'ani, Lemisha writes a melech. He does, there's no din in the world. Less din, the Eibishter does what he wants. People have complaints. Not fair. Avram kishiroisa writes a melech, kishiroisa osher. Thanks to the nisyonis of the avos, you can say to them, what would you be like if you waited 100 years to have a kid? And then the Eibishter said, 37 years later, bring him up onto the oila. What would you do? Right? He said the Vayeishev gave him a kid after 100 years old. And then afterwards he said, bring him as a car. Whatever Avram Avinu gets, magia lo. He deserves it. The Midas Adin, shveikt, has nothing to say. You want to know what Nisyonis do? Nisyonis gives justification that all the good that a person gets, he deserves it. And by the way, I hope to get to it. If I don't, I'll tell you right now that thanks to the Nisyonis of Avram, we, his children, are benefactors of his Nisyonis. We can tap into his, because what he did, he didn't just do for himself. It was eternal. That's why it says on this page, Shin Pei, towards the end, Shemesayim Ipnei Kshoit says the last words, Koloimar, Kol Elu Nisyonis, Loi Hoya L'Tzorech Avram Atzmoi, Elo L'Tzorech Bonov, for his children, Kidei She Midas Adin Miskashetes Selo Le'olam Voed, V'loi Tiskatrek Al Hatzlochas B'nei Avraham. That us as his children should be able to say, what do you mean? My tati, didn't he pacify the Midas Adin? Didn't he do what he needed to do? I'm his child. As their children and their grandchildren, we have the schus to be able to get their hatzlocha. So this is what David HaMelech, of course, wanted. And that's what the Eibishter said. You want it? Gesundheit hate. You want us to say, like, hey, David, but I have to have it that the Midas Adin shouldn't have a tain on you. And the only way the Midas Adin won't have a tain on you is if you are oimid, like the oimid bin nisoyin. We'll test you, and then you'll be able to prove that even though you were tested. What does a test do to a person? How does a test make that a person should be able to be zoicha to that he should get extra? So Parshas, what do you mean? Because you did so much. But the word nes, which means miracle, and the word nisayin has the same shirish. Why? Why do they have the same shirish? Why is nes, nun samach, and nisayin the same shirish? The teretz is, says the Maral, the teretz is because what is a nisayin? A nisayin tests a person. What would the person naturally do under these circumstances? What would a normal person do if they said, shecht your kid chalila? Or even if a person had any type of nisayin. Like Yosef HaTzadik in this week's Parsha, where Eishes Potiphar is testing him, and she does anything. He's a young kid, Nebuch, he's 17 years old, was Vilsta for them, a Baal Nisayin, right? So you could expect that a regular person will do what's natural. Do you know what an Nisayin does? It gives the person the opportunity to rise above their nature. I'm not going to be a natural person. I'm not going to do what my Rotzain, my body Rotzain wants. My body says this, Ich zog nein. I'm not doing it. If I have to run out and embarrass myself, so if a person is Oimid bin Nisayin, that means that his nature didn't hold him back, that he beat nature. You beat nature, then you can be a bound ness. So you can have a ness happen to you. So you haven't bound yourself by nature. You brought yourself above nature. Well said. You brought yourself above nature, so you're not limited to nature. When the Hashmonayu Vanov went to fight against the Yevanim, this imperial army of Greeks, they were well trained. Who were the people, those Kohanim? A bunch of rabbis with long beards and fracks, they had no idea what they were doing. But they went to fight 5 people, Viflam Zeshan Geven, to fight against a huge army. The Meshiga, Mamish Meshiga, the teretz is, Micha Moicha Be'elam Hashem, the Eibishter, there's no choice. Right, that's the word Maccabi. Micha moicha be'elam Hashem. The Eibishter, we have to do it. Eis lasois, we have to do it. So they went and did what's nish normal. So what did the Bais Hashem do for him? Things which are nish normal. You rose above the Nisayin, so therefore Nisayin doesn't hold you back. And that's, by the way, every single one of us. When we get tested in our bitachon and our emunah. But look at the things that look so bleak. How am I supposed to make parnos? How am I supposed to get my kids married? How am I supposed to do this? There's a Rabbi Shalom in the world. He's going to take care of us. Don't worry about it. And you're ruyig. Ruyig means you're calm. You're calm. So that means, but my nature is I have anxiety. Don't have anxiety. Don't. Because if you're batuach, you don't have to have anxiety. If you're batuach, then you know the Eibishter is going to take care of you. That means you're breaking your nature. You're rising above your nature. You're rising above your nature, so the Eibishter sees that nature is not telling you. You're a real Ben Avram Yitzchak v'Yaakov. You're really shaykh to the Avos HaKadoshim. You did what they did, so therefore you get the hatzlacha that they had. You get to be able to say Lekei Avram, Lekei Yitzchak, Lekei Yaakov, because you look like them and you're acting like them. Call echad lefi madrega. So each one of us according to our madrega. Says the Zera Shimshon. We'll read it outside a little bit to finish off the piece. Omnam, what does the lashon mean that kshoit midas hadin? The midas hadin has kshoit. Kshoit means is adorned. Frek the Zera Shimshon on divrei maschol. Omnam. What does it mean? First on the top, imkein and nisayin letzadikim, top of the page on Shin Pei Hey. This is what we said. The midas adin tainas, it's not fair. Why should you give them wealth? Why should you give them hatzlacha? Who says they deserve all these things? The David HaMelech Olav Hashem Shayarayt says she kasav Olav lekei David. Why did David want to lekei Koloimar? Sheyatzlichu b'chol durachav v'yoshiu mikol tzarasav. You see, he should be able to be matzliach in everything, and Hashem should help him. V'hoya b'zem mokoim kitrug l'midas hadin. Midas said, why should I help him out? He obviously, there's tinus on him. Ubishvil zeh amaloi tzarech atol nisayin. The bekoyach nisayin tiskashis midas hadin la'olam. The midas hadin will become kishut. What does kishut mean? Everybody speaks Hebrew? Decoration. That means usually like you prop it up. You make it look nice. The midas hadin looks nice. You're decorating the midas hadin. Mazeh. Asks the Zera Shimshon, what is the kishut? If a person's oimid bin son, you're maided to the person. So you admit he did a good job. You admit that. But what does it mean kishut? Mazeh kishut. Says the Zera Shimshon. I'll tell it to you outside. The Yetzer Hara is known as a mazik. The Gemara Baba Basra says, when you have a mazik and a nizik, one person who damages, who has to move away? The mazik or the nizik? Who has to move away? A mizik l'harchik azatzmoi. doesn't the mazik, you have a shor, or you have a dog. You don't have a dog. But if you did, right, and he could bite somebody, whose job is it? He has to make sure that your dog doesn't bite him, or you have to make sure your dog doesn't bite him. The mazik. Right, he says over here, Chayev hamazik laharchik nizok. But Maishi remembers Baba Basra. The Gemara does sometimes say nizik laharchik azatzmai. Normally you can tell the mazik, what are you doing? This Aisha's paitifar. She's going after him. Ba'amol at tzaddik, it's a Eibishter, if I have an asayin, it's okay. You're giving me an asayin for a reason. I'm not going to make the mazik move away. I'll move away. I'll be the one who moves away. Then the mazik, and he beats the mazik, then the mazik doesn't look so bad anymore. Because then, by the fact that the mazik was beaten, so the mazik then was misukin. I'll explain. It needs 2 minutes of an introduction to explain. When Moshe Rabbeinu, I'll explain with the Gemara in Shabbos. Gemara says when Moshe Rabbeinu went up to Shamayim to get the Torah, we've mentioned it here many times. What did the Malachim say? Maybe she would have given him Torah. They wanted to hurt him. The Gemara says he got scared. I'm scared from Hevel Piv. They're going to burn me. So he said, hold on to my kisa covered and answer him. And then he had a whole discussion. Remember the Gemara? The Gemara, he said, you have a Yetzer Hara, you have Klum Yetzer Hara, Kibbutz, you went to Mitzrayim. The Malachim didn't know these svaras. The Malachim didn't know this. The Malachim nicht gewusst, als nicht gewesen in Mitzrayim. Was haben sie gehört? Was gewesen the Chiddush? You know what my Rebbe said? Oh, did he say a good word? The whole Torah anytime is kedai for this word. You know, the Rebbe Chaim Kanievski said, he said, you know what the Malachim heard? The Malachim haben gehört divrei Torah, the Eibishter's Torah mepi Moshe Rabbeinu. They heard Eile Dvarim Asher Diber Moshe. When Moshe Rabbeinu had geret, they heard the Eibish, they heard Torah from Moshe Rabbeinu. That was it. Game over. Let me explain. The Malachim, the Malachim are being mefal, but they don't have a koyach chidush. They don't have a koyach. You have to have a koyach chidush means say you have to not learn. It's too cold outside to come. Some people didn't show up, but look, and I know we have a full room. How many people came, right? You could have not come, and you decided to come. The fact that you decided, and you fought, and you came, gives a person a kesher to Torah that even Malachim can't have. But it's not like that, just stamazoi. The fact that Moshe Rabbeinu told them a svara, and a richtige svara, they heard the Torah they saw and heard Torah's Moshe. They saw Torah's Moshe. That was the Chiddush. They saw that Torah can come from a basar v'dam. Says the Gemara, everybody became his friend. And even the Malach HaMavis gave him a present, says the Gemara. What present did he give him? He gave him the Ketairis. The Yud Aleph Samamonim. Where do we know Yud Aleph? It doesn't say in the Torah the Yud Aleph Samamonim. Where do we know that from? You know who taught it to him? The Malach HaMavis taught it to him. The Malach HaMavis, as I state in the Gemara, the Malach HaMavis taught it to him. That's what he got on Shemaim when he went to get the Torah. The Malach HaMavis became friends with he became his friend. So my uncle Aviezer Wolfson Zechron Levracha said the following. He said, this was his words. The devil is the enemy of the imperfect man. The perfect man, he's his friend. What does that mean? When you fight the Yetzer Hara and he beats you, he's your enemy because he beat you. But if you overcame in the sun and you beat him, and you were Amid bin Nassan, you were Amid the Satan, then the pshat is you were misakin what you needed to be misakin. He'll give you presents too. He was created to fight you, but ultimately you were created to beat him. Like Yaakov Avinu beat the Satan, Vayaki lo yuchaloi. And then he went there and benched him. The devil, the Satan, is the enemy of the imperfect man. But the perfect man, then fakir, gemechanasai. That's the pshat kshoit. That's the pshat that midas hadin becomes adorned. When a person's given a nesayin, He might not be perfect, but you overcome that nisayon. Unbelievable. So it was like a Vayeishev vayimoin. You could have looked at something, you didn't look at something. Somebody said something to you at work, got you upset, and this and tatas tataran. You could have told him he's not your boss. He's a pipsqueak that works by you, and you could tell him, and those things are garnished. Wow, you become a makar bracha. Even the Satan's happy with you, because then you overcame. He'll try to get you the next minute, right? But he'll say, you beat me on this one, but I want to get you now, because he wants to get you back, because he never stops working. But for that moment, Midas Hadin was niskashet. The Midas Hadin now was adorned, because look, he was Oymed Bedin, and Avada the Eibishter wants, and even the Midas Hadin wants. That's what is state. That's what David HaMelech, and that's what the Medrash, and that's the Zera Shimshon's lesson, that we have nisyonis. The miracle and the Chag of Chanukah was all about people who had the nisayon, who took it upon themselves to be Oymed bin nisayon when there wasn't Ashras Ashchina, when the enemy was down their neck. But they said we had enough, and from that came a nisayon that became a ness. Because why? Because they were oimid and they beat their nature. And that brings the Eibishter down into this world. That's what David HaMelech had gewollt. That's what Yosef HaTzadik did. But Yosef, what happened to him? By being the person who was Oymed bin Nisayon, he became Melech over Mitzrayim, over Gansa Mitzrayim. That's the schus and the koyach that Klal Yisrael has, and that's what we're yoirish from the Avos HaKadoshim. That's what we get as being Bnei Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov. That koyach and that energy to not be bound by our own natural self, to have that koyach to overcome our own self, to be Oymed bin Nisayon, so that the Eibishter should be able to bring nisim upon us and be able to say Lekei Avraham, Lekei Yitzchak, Lekei Yaakov, and Bezus Hashem and Mashiach vet kumen vet menzogen Lekei David Oichet. Chananya ben Akash Meratza Kodesh Baruch Hu lezakos es Yisrael. Lefichach here b'lam Torah mitzvahs.